It's Wednesday, September 6th, and this is Geeknights. Tonight we review Mobile Suit Gundam SEED. Let's do this!
You know, more and more, I'm starting to be of the mind that if you cause a car accident and it's rush hour, the police should just bulldoze your car off to the side of the road and they'll deal with you after rush hour's over.
Yeah, I think that's what they should do. You know what, actually, I thought about this some more. In the A1 Grand Prix, not the F1 Grand Prix, the A1 Grand Prix, if a car crashes, you know how they get it off the track?
With a giant crane?
No, with a giant helicopter. A helicopter comes over, picks up your car, and goes away. It takes like a minute. It's because the helicopter's right there, but, you know, a helicopter can get there pretty quick.
And how expensive that would be?
It is. That the A1 Grand Prix is very, what's the words
expensive?
For? Yeah, it's all froofy and rich people, but, you know, hoity-toity.
I never even heard of that kind of racing. How does it make money?
The A1 Grand Prix is sort of like the international race of whatever, where everyone gets the same car, and there's not every team represents a different country.
I'd never heard of it.
Because everyone outside the U.S. actually cares.
I'm sure.
Especially lots of rich Arab guys in Dubai.
Uh-huh.
Who own it.
All right. Anyway, I just found it funny that I was once again 5 miles from my house, and then there was an accident somewhere off in the distance on Interstate 84, which, since it's one of the two roads that goes east-west in the Dutchess County, completely stopped all traffic within about 40 miles. Of course, being clever, I pulled a bit of shenanigans, and I turned away from where this was, and then I went around a loop-de-loop, and then I ended up skipping all of these people and all this crazy traffic that was stuck trying to get onto the street I needed to get on, thus saving myself about 40 minutes.
Oh, well, that's good.
I can't believe no one ever thinks to do anything like that. I didn't do anything illegal. I just, turning left, there was like a 2-mile line to turn left. And you couldn't turn left because the road was blocked, so it went really slow, and like one car could get through every light cycle, if that. So I went up with no resistance at all, past all these cars. I turned right. Then I just did a U-turn on the street right there, and now I'm on the street I need to be on, and I just go straight through the next light. Yeah. I couldn't believe no one thought of that. And I looked, and the same car that was sitting there at the front of this trying to get in was still sitting there by the time I had made it back to the road, and then I went past him.
Yeah, the thing is, if everyone did do it, it probably it would free up one part of the road, but then it would cause another.
I'm not saying everyone should do it. That'd be terrible.
Yeah.
I just wonder why no one ever thinks to do anything like that.
Sometimes I think to do things like that, but, you know, it really depends on the road, and where you're trying to get to is always a big factor, because it's like...
Yeah, well, I've known, like, before, we were both stuck in a traffic jam once, and I remember you were sitting there, and I cut off to the left and drove around crazily in all these side streets and ended up ahead of you.
Yeah, by 2 cars. I knew that wouldn't help that much, you know?
You know what? It would have if I would have had the balls to drive up a one-way street.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I sat there and I thought about it, and I didn't have the cojones.
I know. Because I knew that didn't go as far enough to be useful. And then we got to another part where it was essentially a gamble. I knew that I could go straight or turn right. And I figured, okay, going right is probably more road, but there's probably no traffic on it. Going straight is less road, but if there's no traffic, I'll get there quicker. And if there is traffic, I'm screwed. So I went right. And
then, I went straight and there was no traffic at all.
It was a gamble, you know? And it didn't get there much later than you. Maybe like 5 minutes.
Don't worry, Atlantic City paid for that gas.
Gas is going down now, so it's not so bad.
Yeah. It's funny that it's really affecting me, and I'm losing much less money per week suddenly.
Yeah.
A difference of 20, 30 cents really matters.
Well, a difference for me, like when I bought gas in New Jersey, I saved like $6, you know, and that's like $6 a week. Hey,
yeah.
Not bad.
I use more than a tank a week.
Oh, I use like a tank and some a week. I didn't go to work today, though, so I use less.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, in the news, now, I can't wait till next week to talk about this, and I didn't think I'd ever have any more news about Sony until they released the PlayStation 3. And I can't believe that they got not 1, but 2 double, horrible whammies of death in the news today.
But I can believe it because it happens every single day.
Why hasn't the CEO of Sony committed seppuku yet? This is like, it's not even to the point of, yeah, Sony's getting what they deserved. They're just being, I don't know what's going on anymore. I can't believe they would be this incompetent. I mean,
If only they weren't Japanese, we could interview them.
I rip on Sony all the time for, the things they've been doing lately, but they're not, at least I didn't think that they were run by stupid people, because the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 1 made crazy amounts of money when no one really expected them to originally. I mean, they went up against the monopoly, the ultimate Nintendo.
Maybe that's the trick, is when you're the underdog in an industry where there's actually competition, you actually try and end up doing well. And when you're so high up, you just think, oh, ha, 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 and then you fail. I mean, if you look at video game consoles over history, people, it's basically someone becomes dominant, but they never stay dominant. Everyone goes up and then crashes.
Yeah, at least recently. I mean, when Nintendo went up, it was the undisputed king for a long time.
And then it came down, but it was up for so long that it was able to hold out through the long haul.
Of course, everyone always...
Sega didn't. Sega failed.
Sega didn't. But everyone always forgets that the GameCube was number 2 for a long time. And while the Xbox eventually edged it out by a tiny bit in the US...
It didn't edge it out anywhere else.
Yeah, worldwide, the GameCube is number 2, not number 3.
Well, if you don't count, like, the Xbox 360 or whatever.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't count the Wii either, or the PSP.
I know. In terms of the
last generation.
The ending generation, the presently ending generation, the GameCube was number 2 in the world.
Yeah. So take that,
Even
Xbox.
though in Europe and places, no one gives a shit about the GameCube.
Yeah, but anyway, the news about Sony first was that they've decided to cut back on their release, and instead of releasing it worldwide this year, they claim sometime in November possibly, they're only releasing it in the US and Japan now, and the rest of the world isn't getting it until at the earliest March of next year.
That's pretty much standard fare. I mean, the rest of the world doesn't get anything.
Well, the thing is, all right, I'm fine with that. And originally they said it was going to come out Q1 of next year. But then they said, no, we're going to have a worldwide release this year.
When did they say that?
A while ago.
Uh-huh.
And then they came back and said, nope, we pushed back the release for everywhere that isn't the US and Japan.
I think it's just hard for me now to follow, like, which things are Sony press releases or Sony and people saying something, and some guy just saying something he found out, and I just really don't care anymore.
Well, then, almost immediately, and Slashshot picked this up right away, it was reported just why they had done this. Remember that blue laser diode thing?
Yep.
There's basically this thing that Blu-ray needs, and it's, for some reason, either difficult to manufacture or something happened, but there aren't enough of them in the world, and they can't be made fast enough. As a result, instead of having 2 million PlayStation 3s ready for the launch, they're going to have maybe 500,000.
Well, that's not enough.
400,000 of them are going to the US, and 100,000 are going to Japan.
Wait, why would they give more to the US when Japan
that's what I was about to say, because while the US is a larger market, the Japanese have, despite the fact that Sony isn't doing so well, there is this loyalty towards Sony that is somewhat fierce over there.
Yeah, I would just sell them all in Japan.
And not only will this probably generate a lot of ill will for Sony in Japan, but I don't even know anymore. I have no more useful commentary about Sony other than that you have pulled a Jack Thompson. You caused me to talk about you again.
I think the thing is with Sony is that, because they screwed up a whole mess of things, right? The price is too high on a giant overheating system that people don't really want, and et cetera, et cetera. A lot of these things now are like bashing for the sake of bashing. Like the people who are like, oh, it doesn't come with the cable. Well, the Xbox 360 doesn't come with the cable.
Nor does the GameCube.
Nothing comes with the cable. It's, it's like they're bashing Sony for things that everyone does, as if Sony's even worse than it is.
You know what, though? I think they deserve bashing for these 2 bits of gemish news.
Yeah, if that's real news, hey, but it's sort of like they had, it's like you're bashing them for returning to the status quo. It's like they made a grandiose promise, like we're gonna do better than usual.
See, but that's
and then
the
they
thing.
say, no, we're gonna do what people normally do, and then you're like, oh, you suck. You're gonna do what people normally do.
But Sony seems to do this a lot. They always seem to say things are gonna be great and things are gonna be awesome, and then when it comes time to actually say, as in, here it is, we're releasing it, suddenly half the things they said before just kind of get forgotten, or yeah, we can't actually make that many, or no, it's not going to have 2 HDMI ports. Or
Yeah, well, that's the complaint everyone made. When they first showed the PS2 at the E3 long ago, they had the emotion engine and all this fancy shit they talked about. And
Yep.
people pointed out at last E3 that none of that stuff ever came to be.
I mean, I think the rule is you can only overhype yourself once, and it'll only work once. Because if I say that my $100 bill is worth $110 and a bunch of people buy my $110 $100 bills and then they realize they got ripped off, they're not going to listen to me next year when I say I'm selling $115 bills.
Well, I think what it really is, the problem is back in the day, even when the PS2 came out, the video game magazine was still the king over the video game website. And people would get a video game magazine or two and they'd read them once a month. And there'd be lots of stuff in there, like, oh, this is going to happen, it's going to have this and that and what now, and screenshots and everything. And people wouldn't remember all the details in those things. So if you said something like, oh, yeah, we're going to have 1,000 gigahertz, and you had 500 gigahertz in the end, probably very few people would notice or care.
True, but now
people are reading the video game news every single day. They're reading the same news, and every single piece of information you release, they are getting told time and time again as links show up again and again on all the different websites they read. So you basically can't lie.
Yeah, and I noticed that Nintendo and Microsoft are doing real well in this regard. I mean, Nintendo hasn't lied yet about anything because every time they say something, they're smart enough to where if they don't know the answer, they qualify everything so much.
I think the thing is that
they're like, it won't be more than $250. It'll come out before the end of the year.
I think Nintendo's strategy is, all right, to avoid lying, and also, because you don't want to tell the truth. That's the worst thing you can possibly do, is to give out all the information too soon or at the wrong time. Nintendo is just either they say nothing or they're super vague.
Or it all comes out suddenly.
Yeah, well, they tell they have exact dates and times, what information they're going to say when, and they figured it out with all sorts of science. And while it's annoying for us because we're just like, tell us, like Apple, a lot of people are like, tell us, Apple, goddamn.
But to the
and it creates lots of rumors, but better than lies,
Yeah. Of course, it's not like Apple where people believe some of those crazy rumors. I don't think anyone believed the rumor that the Wii, back before it was called the Wii, was going to have a holograph
Well, I think
projector.
the reason people believe a lot of Apple rumors is because the Think Secret and Apple Insider, have sort of this track record of being mildly accurate on the rumors. Like, they're between 25 and 50% accurate,
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So less than Drudge.
Well, I know, but the point is that, they get a lot of stuff right. And when you're shooting, machine gun bullets everywhere, you're going to hit something. But the
I
point
predict
is
that Apple is going to come out with a product.
The point is you read a site like that, and it's the same thing, way psychics work, is you read a bunch of facts, and then if a bunch of them turn to be true, you remember the true ones. You don't remember all the wrong ones, It's like A, no, B, no, C. I go through the whole alphabet, and if I got the letter right eventually, you'd be like, oh my God, he got it right. Okay, so my news. In Japan, unlike the U.S., people revere video game music.
Yes, something that should be more revered here. I mean, I listen to OC remixes constantly.
Yeah, I mean, in the U.S., you're only going to get a soundtrack for a major motion picture. You can get a soundtrack for some non-major motion pictures if you hunt around.
Well, hell, Alex went around and found the original ripped soundtrack from a Game Boy game he liked, and then he found a way to play that soundtrack just so he could listen to it.
Yep. Now, in Japan, they put out soundtracks for everything. In fact, they put out multiple soundtracks for everything. In fact, they put out image albums.
Yes, an image album is essentially a soundtrack that contains music that was never actually in whatever it was you bought the soundtrack to.
Yeah, so let's say there was an image album for the Lord of the Rings movie.
That's like
so there's a guy who's composing music for the Lord of the Rings movie, and while he's doing that, he composes some other music. And he also,
So it would be like the battle song they didn't use, and then the song they wrote about Aragorn because they felt like writing a song about Aragorn that they knew they wouldn't use.
Yeah, and a song that that captures a certain mood, but they didn't actually use that song for that movie.
The hobbits are walking, walking and walking.
And that's an image album. So in Japan, they put out albums for everything, including Phoenix Wright.
Oh, God.
No, wait. And not only do they put out albums for everything, but who's going to buy a CD with just some kind of GBA music?
All right, is the answer here that they made an audio drama?
No, the
Okay.
answer is
'Cause
that
usually they make an audio drama.
the answer is that they got, ye old orchestra to play on Phoenix Wright soundtrack.
Ooh.
Just like they do with, Smash Brothers and all those other ones.
I remember when I was, God, this is pretty much before MP3s were widely available.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I ordered, and it came
The Final Fantasy.
from Japan, this Final Fantasy concert. And I paid like $40 for this CD. And I remember listening to an orchestra playing the music from Final Fantasy and being so blown away by this and marveling at the wondrous nation that was Japan.
I don't know, where are all the orchestras at? If I ever get a lot of money, I'm buying an orchestra.
There's orchestras everywhere. There are like 4 orchestras here, Scott.
We should buy one of them.
We could donate enough money to where they'd let us do things, like tell them what to play.
That's essentially buying them, which is
Yeah.
good enough.
You can do like what they did in that Marx Brothers movie I showed you.
Yeah, exactly. No, but yeah.
Just be a wealthy benefactor.
Phoenix Wright, music, CD.
I'm all about
now,
that.
This morning when I got this link, this thing of the day, or not, this is not a thing of the day, this is the news. This
Way to
morning
go.
when I found this news, there was links to some MP3 samples of the album, but they're not working now, so I'm unhappy. That's all I got to say about that. This was a better news when there were MP3 links.
Things of the day. Now, as the most important issue of Death Note has come out in America, and I'm sure you all who are reading Death Note have read it, I have a very special Death Note related thing of the day that I'd kind of been saving, and I'd also kind of forgotten about until a couple days ago.
Okay.
Though also, I have a clue, because I said I'd do this, as to what my thing of the day tomorrow will be, and that it involves naked men.
Uh-huh. I think that someone we know is probably going to get it based on just that.
They'd better. Good God. Though all of the guesses we received were completely incorrect.
Yeah, no, I think that we could possibly make this thing come back because it was a huge thing like years ago.
Yeah.
And then it hasn't returned, and I've noticed this trend of old things that were awesome years ago returning and getting to the top of Dig. So
I'm waiting for Radiskull and Devil Doll to make it again.
Halloween, man, that's when they're coming back.
I think that should be our mission.
I think it should be.
But anyway, tomorrow I will reveal the mystery of the naked men. And no, the naked men are not myself and Scott, though that may be the case in the near future. I smell a cosplay. Anyway, my thing of the day today is simply L trying to get a love potion from Snape, the potions master. And I'm not going to ruin it. Just watch it. It's hilarious. I would rate it PG-13 for a slight amount of rape.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that is usually reserved for the realm of fan crap. However, its production quality is over the line and its humor is over the line, so it gets a pass.
See, I like these things a lot more than Scott does. I mean, it's very similar to anyone who's seen the old classic Bothering Snape. Bother, 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 bother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, it's
Okay.
really well done. Check it out.
Yeah.
The rape's not so bad. I think you can get past it. Plus, remember, it's a cute boy character from Death Note doing something to another character from Death Note who was also a boy.
I'll just say that I like it when people use copyrighted characters to make entertaining things to show that, again, copyright law is BS. And
Oh,
it hinders creativity.
it's not illegal in Japanophone.
It is technically maybe, but no
Yeah,
one
but
cares.
it's not nearly the way it
Cr-
is here.
Copyright and patent laws are hindering creativity, not helping. Okay.
Yes, because if you enjoy what we showed, or what my thing of the day was, bear in mind that was totally illegal.
Yeah, you're not allowed to use those copyrighted characters.
Anyway,
It's not a parody. Okay. This is something that I think a lot of people have been asking for, even though we kind of, sort of did an episode on it a little bit, maybe. It is very detailed and complete instructions on how to throw a large room party at a science fiction convention. Now, if you replace the word science fiction with anime or comic or gaming, you won't have to change much else on the entire page because this is pretty much where it's at.
yeah, I mean, Scott sent it to me and I was reading it, and it read almost exactly like how we have planned parties in the past and how we continue to plan parties.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't plan on throwing a party at a convention, it's pretty funny. I mean, especially when you look at the party essentials list: cheese and a veggie knife, bottle opener, corkscrew, cash, preferably in small bills, common sense, a bottle of ibuprofen, willing minions. You know, it's funny even if you aren't going to take it seriously to throw a party. But if you are going to throw a party, print this out and bring it with you and read it before your party and after your party and during your party. And make sure you do things right. I pretty much guarantee that if you follow these directions, you will have a successful good time.
Because this thing is dead on.
It is pretty much a bullseye.
But anyway, without further ado, today we are going to go back to our typical show format of reviewing anime.
Holy crap!
Fancy that. Con season's almost wound down to the point that we can finally start doing something other than talk about cons.
Relaxo.
Even though I still have Otakon content that we have not used yet.
Oh, great.
The recording of the assassination attempt by certain unnamed forces.
I thought you put it up already.
No.
Oh.
When would I have put that up?
I thought it was in another episode.
No, because the whole panel we did was good, and I just didn't get a chance to edit it because it takes... Basically, because of the way we recorded the stuff at Otakon, due mostly to the fact that GarageBand is evil...
Yep.
It takes a lot of manual, annoying editing to make it not sound bad. As a result, I haven't gotten around to actually putting that bit together yet. But suffice to say, someday in the near future, you will actually be able to hear the moment at which Daryl Surratt so valiantly tried to slay me and Scott of Geeknights.
Well, we are slain. I mean, aren't we zombies now?
Yeah, I think I'm more of a vampire.
Vampire? You know, vampires aren't things that get slain and come back.
You realize
you pretty much have a choice between zombie and ghost.
You realize the moment I said I'm a vampire, Scott Johnson got his cross and his stake and is already in the car on the way to Beacon.
Well, I'm a ghoul, so that's a much better choice.
Ghouls smell like asses.
I know, that's the point. No one will want to come and slay me. Okay.
Though I will say we often have debates among our group as to... You know, the question was always, if there was evil power, would you take it? And the fact that I said possibly means that I'm on Scott Johnson's bad list, and if evil power ever appears, he's going to make sure I don't get it.
I'm all about the evil power, maybe, because I would use the evil power for non-evil.
It depends. I could deal with being someone like Zelos.
Maybe.
I could deal with that real well.
Maybe. Anyway,
tonight we are going to review a very good show that we both enjoyed very much. It was also very popular. Gundam SEED.
We're not talking about Gundam SEED Destiny.
God, Gundam SEED Destiny does not exist.
Even though we've never seen it.
Imagine that I am Gundam SEED Destiny's father. I have no son.
Yeah. And now we're not going to talk about Gundam SEED manga. We're not talking about Gundam SEED movies. We're not talking about Gundam SEED OAVs or ONAs. We're talking about the original 50-episode TV series, Gundam SEED.
It was put out by Sunrise in late 2002.
Well, Bandai. Yeah.
Well, in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was directed by Mitsuo Fukuda, who is also known for Gear Fighter Dendo, which I've never seen and know nothing about.
He's basically some robot director, I think.
Apparently, he put a lot of references to Gear Fighter Dendo in Gundam SEED.
Yep, that's apparently what the trivia on the Anime News Network Encyclopedia says.
Yes, that is also what I got out of Wikipedia.
Oh, so
see, we're trying
it must be true if it's in two separate user-editable encyclopedias of information.
See, you'll note that we're very much trying to sound erudite like Anime World Order.
We're gonna fail miserably because we don't know shit about.
What, I just said what company put it out, what year they put it out in, and who directed it, and something else he directed. Yeah. Holy shit! That's more than we've ever done.
Oh my god!
I mean, when we talk about other shows, we're like, yeah, this show came out, I don't know, 10 years ago, and then you look it up, it's like, no, it came out last month. Oh,
yeah. So the show came out in what, 2000?
Late 2002 to early 2003,
and it was in the U.S. When?
Oh, later. I don't know. You watched the fan subs.
Yeah, I watched some of the fan subs, then I stopped, and then I bought it all on DVD. I think the DVDs must have come out 2004, 2005.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, because we finished it last year, so at 2004, 2005 is when the DVDs came out in the U.S.
Now, Gundam SEED is notable for a number of reasons, in that it breaks away from the previous continuity of Gundam drastically.
Yes, the original Mobile Suit Gundam takes place in a timeline called Universal Century, and there are a lot of Universal Century Gundams. I mean, Zeta Gundam's Universal Century Gundam, Char's Counterattack, all those things. You know, the original Gundam series.
Yeah, but not Gundam Wing.
Not Gundam Wing. Gundam Wing is on its own in this other area.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I'm not saying
Let's see.
anything.
0080, 0083, 0087, F91. Those are all Universal Century Gundam in the original universe.
God, F91 was terrible.
Yes. Gundam Wing was in its own universe with some manga. And Gundam SEED begins a new timeline of Gundam that's separate from all other Gundams called the Cosmic Era. So Gundam SEED and everything else Gundam SEED related are all Cosmic Era Gundams.
Now, the interesting thing is that a lot of people have noticed that Gundam SEED very much parallels the original Gundam.
Yes, it does. Like, if you've seen the original Gundam, which I haven't, just because I haven't gotten it and had the time to see it, a lot of it is pretty much, it's the same thing, only updated.
Now, there are pros and cons to this because some fans said, wow, they took this awesome old show and they redid it modernly and now it's more awesome. But other fans said, they have ruined the pure and transcendental nature of my robot anime.
Yep. Well, some other people said, oh man, the show would have been more awesome if I didn't spoil it for myself by watching the original.
Yeah, I gotta say, seeing Gundam SEED without knowing how it's going to end is one of the primary reasons to watch it, because it
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen the original Gundam, you're basically going to easily predict a lot of things that go on and who's who and all sorts of secrets, making the show slightly less enjoyable, even if you're not a fanboy. If you are a fanboy, you will not like Gundam SEED if you've seen the original Gundam.
Now,
I'm
fortunately
pretty sure.
for most of you, though I'm sure there are many people out there who will consider this a bad thing, and I'm indifferent to the matter, I'll bet that the majority of anime fans have never seen the original Gundam.
I also am willing to bet that, just because it's not easy to get.
No, it really isn't. At least
if
not,
it was easier to get, I'd have it. You know? I mean, they're not selling it in $40 boxes at Otakon.
I think we could get it in Netflix. I haven't looked.
Oh, maybe we should try.
We should, because
that's probably something where even if it's not good, we should, you should watch it even if it's not good.
Yeah.
Just because it's the original Gundam, every anime fan should see it.
But anyway, the plot of Gundam SEED, in case you haven't seen the original Gundam, which we'll assume that you all have, is the actual plot is somewhat simple. In its typical Gundam plot, there are people who live in space. There are people who live on Earth. There is conflict between the people in space and the people on Earth. Kids and people who don't want to be involved in the war get involved in the war. There's a whole bunch of crying and angst and shooting, and in the end, everything's kind of resolved.
Yep, that sums it up pretty good. I mean, to give a little more detail, there are these people called Zaft. Well, I'll just say Zaft. They're coordinators, and coordinators are like advanced super people. They're genetically engineered people who are smarter, better, faster, stronger than everyone else.
They're kind of like the people in Crest of the Stars, except not blue. Or more important, they're kind of like the New Types.
Yes, that's exactly what they are.
In fact, little bit of trivia, New Type magazine is called New Type because that's what coordinators were called back in the day in those other Gundam shows.
In the Universal Century.
In those other Gundam shows.
Right. And everyone else is a human or a robot. You could be a robot also.
yeah, whatever.
Or like a human clone or a robot clone or a coordinator clone, and it was crazy. And these coordinators, were they were discriminated against by a lot of humans, because people are like that.
Yeah, particularly
it's sort of like the X-Men if you think about it.
Particularly, there's a group called Blue Cosmos.
Yeah, Blue Cosmos are like the anti-X-Men.
They're the KKK, only they're against coordinators instead of brown people.
Yeah, I don't know how that works out, because if you're racist against someone who actually is smarter, better, faster, stronger, wouldn't you just get your ass kicked?
See, the problem is, now I don't really want to go a lot into where coordinators came from, but suffice to say, the show starts out and there's coordinators, and they just kind of go with it. Don't worry. Later in the show, there is old news things and flashbacks, and you learn exactly the sci-fi business that is a coordinator, and it's not just some hackneyed plot point.
Yeah, I think that sci-fi business is actually a lot of the good part of the show.
Yeah, I mean, there's a point where they go back and they kind of do this like news thing of...
And they have that fossil of the whale with wings that proves his extraterrestrial life, which they don't talk about it so much, but it has a really deep sci-fi meaning.
But suffice to say, while the show appears to be a typical Gundam show, there is a lot of very good sci-fi in there all over the place. And it's not the focus of the show, but pay attention to it because it adds so much. Without that, the show would have been barely watchable.
Yeah, I mean, And we're not talking about just the, robots fighting in space sci-fi action. We're talking about hard sci-fi.
Yeah,
it's sort of between the lines, but if you look, you can see it there, and it makes everything else stand out pretty nicely.
Like when they go back and they explain, the first coordinator and what happened to him and his business and why all the people in space are mostly coordinators. And yes, they are better, but because they're so good and so perfect and they've been so engineered, they can't breed so quickly. And also, living in space with limited resources, many of them don't want to breed. So as a result, while they are vastly superior both in technology, in ability, in intelligence, there are just so many more humans, and humans are on a planet, so they have such a more stable base of resources that the two forces are pretty much at a dead heat.
Yeah, and basically the plot is, a long time ago, the humans blew up one of the space colony things of the coordinators.
Yes,
which is sort of like the 9/11.
They mention it a lot in the show.
They mention it in the opener, don't they?
Yes, but later in the show, they actually explain specifically what happened.
And a lot of bad stuff happens around it.
And
it's really important to understand the Bloody Valentine Massacre.
It's basically this horrible tragedy where the Earth forces used nuclear weapons to kill an insane amount of people in space.
Yeah, it was basically 9/11 for the coordinators, which is why they're at war.
Yes, and the original conflict seems to be that the coordinators are fighting to make sure that they aren't effectively genocided.
Yep.
Because that is what they are afraid of. And the Earth forces are nominally fighting to protect themselves from the coordinators, but there are a lot of elements in human society that are hijacking these military people.
Well, that's really what the whole conflict is that you have coordinators on one side saying, let's kill all humans. You have humans saying, kill all the coordinators. Then you have coordinators saying, I just don't want to die by you crazy humans with nukes. And you have humans saying, I just don't want to feel threatened by these people who are smarter, better, faster, and stronger.
Well, think of it this way, because this is a good way to put it in modern day realistic terms. You have two political factions that are also nations, and they're at war. Now, officially, and for all intents and purposes, they're at war because of these economic and social problems. They're afraid of each other. There was this massacre, military buildup, brinksmanship, all of that. And they're fighting as two powers fighting a war. But then, and this is really just a pretext, because the reason they're really fighting is because there are a lot of coordinators who run the country who want to destroy all of the humans because they're inferior and take their land. And there are a lot of humans who want to destroy all the coordinators because they're an abomination.
Generally, all the people who were high up want to destroy the other guys, and all the low-down people don't. I think it's set up that way. However, it may not be 100% realistic, but that's how it's set up.
Well, it seems that in the Earth forces, there are nominally powerful people who, they're the ones who are technically in power and technically running this war for all of their reasons, but Blue Cosmos has kind of infiltrated the government, and Blue Cosmos represents the way a lot of people actually feel, and they just justify the war with all of their bullshit.
Yep. All right, now let's talk about the robots a little bit.
Well, before we get that, one of the other main points of conflict here is that nuclear weapons were what was used to destroy this colony.
Oh, right. I forgot.
So,
it's huge.
So what the coordinators did with their vastly superior intelligence and science
is they made N-jammers.
Now, an N-jammer is a device that they don't explain in great detail, but it is effectively a device that can prevent nuclear fission and fusion.
Yeah, so
in a local vicinity.
What they did is they shot a bunch of giant things into the deep into the earth where no one could dig them up.
Thousands and thousands and thousands. And the humans and the Earth forces have been trying to dig these things up, and there's just so many they can't do it.
Yeah, so basically no nuclear reactor will work. You can't have a nuclear submarine. You can't have a nuclear powered robot. You can't have a nuclear missile. And all the radios kind of suck anywhere near the Earth because these N-jammers are preventing nukes from working.
Now, as a side effect of, protecting the coordinators from the nukes and from the barbaric humans, it also causes a lot of people on Earth to die because suddenly there's no more nuclear power, there's an energy crisis, mass chaos ensues.
Yep, it's a whole bunch of stuff going on.
So both sides have perfectly legitimate gripes with each other, but then the actual reason they're fighting is just for this ideology.
Yep. So, as I said, there's no nukes, so the robots are kind of weak. They can't have nuclear-powered robots.
Now, despite all this, there are neutral places. There's the nation of Orb on Earth,
Yep.
which is very technological and is comprised of a lot of coordinators and a lot of humans.
Yep, and there are outer space colonies that are neutral.
Yes.
Which is where the story begins.
The story begins in Heliopolis.
Which is an outer space colony. And what's happening is the Zaf people have robots. They have Gundams, well, not Gundams, but mobile suits. And that's an extreme advantage in the war compared to the mobile armors, which are basically X-Wing type devices, or flying little space jet guys.
Yeah, there's pretty much, as far as I can tell, only one human who can actually fly one of these things effectively, and his name is Mula Flaga.
Mula Flaga is the best character in the show, but the point is...
See, I don't know. I'll have to raise you a Lacus Klein.
Yeah, the only advantage the humans have in this war is their numbers, and if they could somehow get mobile suits, they could turn the tide.
In D&D terms, it's a lot like the orcs versus the humans, or the humans versus the elves, or the elves versus the dragons.
Well, it's like Battletech with the clan versus the Inner Sphere.
Yeah.
It's exactly like that. So the story begins on this space colony where Orb, or the military factory of Orb, which is called Morgan Rati, is developing some robots that will be able to be piloted by humans. They're also badass robots.
See, the reason humans don't have mobile suits is that humans just don't have the physical agility and the mental power to be able to pilot one of these incredibly complex things. But coordinators, because of their massively augmented intelligence, have absolutely no problem.
Well, they don't have no problem.
Well, no,
they can do it.
They can do it. It is not an impossibility.
No, it's not. Not at all. But for humans, it's basically just beyond human ability, It's like maybe the best human there is could kind of do it shittily.
Yep.
But a really good coordinator could do it awesomely. So
now, the story starts in Heliopolis, and it follows a whole bunch of kids. And I'll warn you that the first about 3 or 4 episodes are typical Gundam opening crap.
Yeah, it's like you can't really see where the show is going, because what it is they were making robots, which on a neutral area where they shouldn't have been.
Oh, the Zaf people figured it out.
The Zaf people figured it out. They're coming to take the robots. There's some kids who accidentally get involved with the robot.
Now, at least that makes sense because they're at university and high school and studying this stuff.
Yeah, but, some kids, it's neutral, so some of them are coordinators, some of them aren't, and they get the robot and they get in a spaceship and all of a sudden they're in the military and then the story begins.
Yeah, I mean, they're such a pretext to get these people into the story that the first few episodes are kind of rushed in that it goes from we're kids to, oh my God, that kid's piloting the robot. Oh my God, he's a coordinator.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he saved us. Oh my God, we're on the ship. Oh my God, the Heliopolis exploded.
Yeah, I think what it is, they design characters and that they want, to appeal to the audience. And then they make a plot. And those characters don't fit into the plot. So they need to have this beginning part that's a little bit hackneyed to, mix the two together.
Now,
or else you would go, what the hell are they doing there? That makes no sense.
Don't discount the show based on the first 4, maybe 5 episodes, because once the characters are set, once they're in the ship and the plot starts going, the show is incredibly well done.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at least compared to other Gundams I've seen and a lot of other robot shows in general, it's just fantastic because they don't concentrate so much on the robot stuff. I mean, it's there. And, they say lots of spaceshipy robot stuff.
Yes, they're definitely nods to the fanboys in that, I mean, there's the robot fighting, which is well done, but it's not repetitive.
Sometimes it's repetitive when they reuse some footage over, and a fight will happen at the end of an episode, and the beginning of the next episode will show you the same animation from the end of the last one. So it's a little if you're watching it straight through on DVDs, but if you watch the episode spaced out, it's all good.
But they do the thing of the fanboys really want all the technical stuff. They want to hear
a bunch of made-up technology.
They want to hear what formation the Gundams are in, or what gun they're firing, or what part of the ship just got damaged, or what the rank is of that officer. And the beauty of the way Gundam SEED is pulled off is that all of that is there, but it doesn't get in the way. They don't bother explaining this Ixtalung whatever gun is this kind of weapon, but this gun does this thing.
Yeah,
this gun does
all
this
that
thing.
stuff is explained in the DVD extras and stuff if you want to read it, but you don't have to.
But more importantly, in the show, the captain or the XO will just order, fire the blah, 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 and it just happens, and the fanboys can figure it out and drool about it, but all it does to people who don't care about that is add authenticity that, yeah, they're using military jargon and it works.
Yep. It's like, At the other robot shows, what they'll do is they'll explain what every single thing is, and it's like, these people are in the military. Shouldn't they already know? It's like, why are they explaining it to, it's like you realize that it's only there for the audience, and it kind of ruins the show a bit. In Gundam SEED, they don't bother. People know what they're supposed to do, and, if there's any fancy words, they just say the fancy words without defining them.
Now, the primary conflict of the plot of the show, the overarching plot, is this conflict between Zaft and Earth and the neutral territories like Orb.
But the story doesn't focus on that. I mean, it does, but it's sort of like, that's like the environment in which the story takes place.
And now, that alone would have been an okay show.
Okay show.
But what they did is they took, basically, I don't want to trivialize it, but they took what is effectively teen angst.
It's a teen angst soap opera in space.
But at least it's a well-done teen angst soap opera.
Well, the teen angst soap opera has different phases and different segments. It's like certain characters have certain conflicts, which all seem to all tie into the main character, Kira Yamato, somehow. But some of them are annoying. Like early on, all the stuff with Flay All-Star.
It's really just Flay is annoying.
Yeah, Flay All-Star is annoying.
But that's important. I don't want to ruin anything, but it's important that she's annoying.
It is important that she's annoying, but she's there, and that's annoying teen angst. But all the other teen angst is pretty good. It's like, oh, we used to be friends, and now we're on opposite sides of the war, or oh no, so-and-so died, I crying. Or
the characters,
why, should I stay in the military or should I go?
The characters are really, in my opinion, especially for a show like this, very realistically portrayed and very multidimensional in many cases. I mean, no character is just straight up, I am the angsty guy who doesn't want to pilot the robot, or I am the strong woman who will stand here. Everyone who is strong has moments of weakness. Everyone who is weak has moments of strength. The show is very human.
Yeah, that's another thing I really like about the show is that, there are a lot of characters, a lot. But somehow you can keep track of all of them pretty easily because the designs are really recognizable.
Yeah. I mean, even characters that die. Characters die. The show is not all just
There's
fun
a guy,
and games.
This isn't a spoiler, there's a guy named Rusty.
Rusty.
Rusty dies in like episode 1 or 2.
You never see his face. All you see is him getting shot.
And then another guy who is a very, like a main character goes, Rusty! And you hear Rusty's name later when they're remembering people who died. He's like, Rusty. And it's like, it's the great,
At the end of this episode, when we're done talking about the show, seriously, we're going to go through all of the funny cliches in the show.
Okay.
Because there are many.
There are many. But another thing, what I'm saying is, there are a lot of characters in the show who may or may not have names, and they may or may not get a lot of screen time. But they're not, in other shows, they would just be extras. But in this show, there's something a little bit, like the guy who's the maintenance guy in the robots, on the ship.
If a character has a line ever, they are fleshed out as much as they can be.
Yeah, it's like the guy who's the navigator on the ship. You don't even get his name, really. I think maybe you do once or twice, but while he doesn't say a lot, you see him there, and you keep seeing the same guy. They draw the same guy in the same seat, and they have him show up at appropriate times and say appropriate things, so you kind of get to know him, even though he's not involved in the main plot in any way, except for he's a guy who's there. He's the navigator.
Well, a lot of shows, when they do something like that, they'll just draw a generic guy, like a faceless guy in the background working on the robot.
Yeah.
And not only that, but whenever something happens and people are around, there'll be a lot of reaction shots, and a lot of the reaction shots are of characters you don't know. Just like a crowd of officers standing there just kind of watching something happen.
Yeah, it's like, they'll have like a council or like a military tribunal, and you'll know like the 2 head guys of the tribunal.
And you've never seen the other 8 characters.
You've never seen the other 8 guys, but instead of just having the main 2 guys talk while the other 8 guys sit there, they'll have some of those other 8 guys say like one line each so that they're actually not just extras.
In fact, I think I remember one point at which there was a scene where there were 2 of the people arguing, neither of which were characters I knew in any way.
Yeah.
And yet it was their scene, and the characters I knew were just kind of watching.
Yeah, and they have no qualms about just introducing characters and taking them out and putting them back in and all kinds of stuff. So you really can't skip around in this show. You got to watch it straight through.
Like there's a point at which, because the basic driving force of the show in terms of plot, as opposed to character, is that all of the characters are on this ship, the Legged ship, and they're on their own.
The Archangel.
Yeah, they're in this ship on their own, and a somewhat elite force of Zaft is trying to track them down.
Yeah, it's like the first half of the show.
In addition to the war going on, and they're just trapped alone trying to avoid being killed. And that's the whole first half of the show is they're just trying to get somewhere safe. And that's really hard to do.
Well, they're trying to get back to Earth.
They're trying to get somewhere safe, but we know how that ends.
Yeah.
Remember when they go to Artemis?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just trying to get somewhere safe.
And no good.
But the driving
You
force...
can't go somewhere safe, then there wouldn't be any robot battles. What's wrong with you?
The driving force character-wise is... I'd say the primary conflict is that the two characters that are main-ish are Kira Yamato and Asran
Zala. They
Zala.
mess it up because... Like, if you buy a toy that has Asuran's name on it, it says Asuran, which is Asuran. But in, like, the fans, in the Bandai subtitles, it says Athrun, Atheron. You know, and then, like, some places get the R and the L mixed up in the last name. I'm not sure which one it is, but it's either Zara or Zala. But either way, it's Zara.
Anyway, they're both coordinators, and Atheron is... a member of the military of this elite force for Zaft. And Kira Yamato ends up, even though he's a coordinator, piloting this one Gundam that they've got on this ship. And all he's trying to do is defend all of his friends. And it ends up that Atheron is sent to kill the people on the ship. And then he finds out that Kira's on there. And the whole show is these two, meeting in the midst of combat or, just crossing in the wind and trying to deal with that, the fact that they're both on opposite sides of a war.
Yeah, it's like if Rim was an Iranian soldier and I was a U.S. soldier and there was a U.S.-Iranian war and I was on a boat with the rest of the front row crew and I was the robot pilot and Rim was also a robot pilot and he was coming to blow up the boat and I'd be like, you're my friend and I don't want to kill you, but I have like 10 friends on this boat and I have to defend them from you who is going to kill them.
And if you think that's it, no.
Nope.
Every character drives the plot in some way. I mean, every character has their moment. Everything, the character relationships are very complex.
Very complex. It's
and
like,
I'm not going to ruin anything other than that this show is comprised of many very powerful scenes that are very obviously important scenes. Like the show will be going fine. And then, some music will start and there will be a scene, like a 10-minute scene.
Yep.
And like there's the opera house scene. There's the scene where two characters are standing on opposite sides of a fence outside. That was like the best
There's
scene.
also lots of symbolism. Like they'll put little tiny things. Like Kira has this bird.
Totally.
That, Asuran made for him a long time ago before the show started. And they'll have the bird
kind of like Darth Vader.
Kind of like Darth Vader. And they'll have this bird show up and land on people's shoulders or fly into different scenes, to like remind you and teach you, and remind you of things and be symbolic, and the Lacus Klein, who's Asuran's woman.
Lacus Klein is awesome.
Yeah, is Rim's favorite character. She has these little haros, which you might notice. There's a lot of toys of these. They're little balls with the wings and the eyeballs. They're cute.
I got a little Haro washcloth in a little Haro bag for Emily.
Yeah, these things will bounce around and say cute things and generally interfere in scenes to say things that are poignant or silly,
Yes, often very poignant, though.
Yeah. And it's like, they just throw little things into every scene to remind you of stuff and be symbolic all over the place. Or they'll show you images of things like that whale with the wings, to remind you. And
Now, there's a lot of romance among the interpersonal relationships of the characters. And without ruining anything, because there's a lot to ruin, I would just like to point out that all of the relationships are very realistically handled, and they aren't used too badly for the plot. Like, characters don't get together and then the whole plot revolves around it. Things just kind of occur naturally, and a lot of things that you expect to happen don't, and characters that you wouldn't think would have any reason to know each other end up getting together, and it's hard to predict what the show is going to do unless you watch the openers carefully.
Yeah, a lot of it, though, what happens is all the relationship stuff goes, like, unspoken. It's like no one will say, hey, you're hot. Hey, I want you. Hey, me and him are going out. Me and them are, it's all just kind of, you'll get a shot on someone's face and a shot on someone else's face. And then they'll show you two people looking at each other, or they'll show you like two people waking up in the same room and everything is sort of implied. And, at first, when I watched the show the first time, I was always kind of like, is it really going on? Because they don't, they never put it in concrete. It's like, I wasn't 100% sure just how involved.
Well, until a few scenes in the end where some very obvious things happen.
Yeah. There are very obvious things towards the end and in the openers. That's another problem. Is the openers are very spoilery if you take them at face value.
Watch the openers because they're good, but don't think about them, because I kept pissing Scott off while we were watching the show because he'd seen a much of it and I hadn't. And as we're watching, like, I'd noticed in one opener, two characters are on opposite sides of the screen pointing guns at each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, those two characters are going to fight each other somehow. And he's like, and then they did. But then the opener changed one episode, and the same two characters are in the same poses, but instead of coming across the screen aiming at each other, they come across the screen backwards and they end up standing back to back. And I said, holy crap, that guy, one of those characters is going to join the other character's side, and they're going to be allies. And Scott's like, what the fuck? And I said, it's all in the opener. Look, the opener shows me that those two characters are going to get together, that character's going to die, that character's going to do this, and it was all right.
Yeah, so if you don't pay too much attention to the opener, you might spoil the show for yourself.
Yeah, if you think you're smart, don't watch the openers.
Even though you should listen to the awesome music in the openers.
Yes, the music in this show is very good.
Yeah, it's like they got all this great TM Revolution music, and what's her name? And they got TM Revolution and Nami Tamaki and all these other people to do awesome openers and closers and awesome, like, this original orchestral score during the show. And it's wicked awesome.
The music is used to very great effect to augment your emotions. I mean, there'll be a scene, and the scene itself would have been heart-wrenching or incredibly full of just, like, fear and anticipation. And then the music just kind of drives that home doubly.
Yeah, it's like what they'll do is they'll have the same music for the same things that happen, because there are things that happen often and repeat often.
Yeah, they're kind of like leitmotifs. Like, certain characters will have certain songs that play when they come, or...
So it's like, if so-and-so is sad and they're dealing with this section of the, the overall plot, like this relationship, you'll always hear that music, But
as a result, they also use the music to kind of show characters' emotions in ways that you couldn't show so easily just by animating them.
Especially since so much of it is left unsaid and people just look at each other. So a lot of it is people look at each other and they play a music to let you know.
Or like a character is standing somewhere and his eyes narrow and suddenly some music comes in and the music kind of shows you his resolve growing as he's about to shoot someone.
Yeah, and changing that music would just completely change the whole thing. It's like the animation isn't so much. The music is what really does it.
I mean, all in all, because I don't want to go too long about this, and
yeah, we've
been dancing around spoiler lines a lot. We're going to, at some point in the future, do a final thoughts episode on Gundam SEED, but this is just a review, so we're not going to spoil anything.
The point is that Gundam SEED is a really good show.
Now, if you
really
think
good.
You wouldn't like Gundam SEED because you don't like Gundam shows or you don't like robot shows, Gundam SEED is probably the perfect robot show for you because there is so much more to it than the robots.
Yeah, it's a soap opera, it's a sci-fi, and it's robots.
It's not like Ava or Big O where it's, hey, the robots are just here to get you to think about this existentialist crisis.
Yeah, here, look at the genres listed on Anime News Network. Drama is mecha, military, romance, science fiction, shonen. That's quite a bit there.
All right. So, on to the funny cliches in this show.
The first one is the split screen. It's not just the split screen, I'd like to call it the breaking glass screen. You know when you break a piece of glass, it gets a bunch of triangles?
Yep.
What they'll do in this show is, like, something will explode in a space battle. Maybe someone dies, And then what they'll do is they'll break the screen up into, like rhombuses and triangles, and they'll show you the faces of a different character in each spot. So they'll be like, eek!
Now it starts out...
You'll get, like, a 1 second reaction from each character.
Now it starts out all right. I mean, a lot of shows do something like that. And because there aren't so many characters, towards the end of the show, when pretty much all the characters who are still alive are involved in scenes...
They're involved in one giant space battle.
It'll be like... and then a whole new swipe, and then a whole nother set of people reacting to something.
And then the person who cares the most about what just happened will get a full screen, scream going on. It's they got to show you the reaction of every single character for like a fraction of a second. So they break the screen up and show you everyone's face.
It works really well, but if you watch the show pretty much straight through like we did, you really start to notice that happens all the time. And you start laughing, even though it's a serious scene.
Yeah, it's like if you had a Gundam Seed drinking game. It's like, oh, man. Another thing that's a problem, I think, with Gundam Seed is that there are a lot of recap episodes, which if you're watching it on TV, or let's say you're picking it up in the middle, that's a great thing because the recap episodes, there's many of them and they're thorough. And they actually have a little bit of new stuff and they kind of make sense in the plot and they're interesting. It's not just like, here's a recap. It's like,
but goddamn,
it's like we're going to do a military debriefing and they talk, they speak and there's a recap.
Yeah. Now, I wouldn't mind except that there seem to be about twice as many recaps as there need to be. And some shows do recaps really well. Like Nana, the recaps are totally new episodes, effectively.
Yep.
Because they show you the same thing from a different perspective, and they add things, and it's really worth it to watch. Gundam Seed, the recaps, I just feel cheated. Like, damn it, they just stole 15 minutes of my life.
Yeah, if you're watching on the DVD straight through, you can pretty much skip the recap episodes, or at least fast forward them to see, like, the 10 seconds of new animation. But if you're watching slowly, over time, I think the recaps would help you a lot because you'd forget details that, are important later on, or you maybe missed an episode here or there. But even then, if you watch it, say, one episode a week, there's still too many recaps. They could have cut out one or two of them and been okay.
All right.
Especially since the recaps often come right before very important episodes. So they just delay you getting to the good stuff.
Now, the other big thing that happens often is Kira Yamato starts crying. Or another character cries. A lot of people cry a lot in this show. And the thing is, normally when you have a voice actor doing crying, it sounds like a voice actor doing crying. It's just someone doing like a movie crying. And for whatever reason, and I'm actually very glad they did it this way, but it's also sometimes hilarious. Characters cry realistically, because if you've ever seen someone crying after something absolutely terrible happens to them, they don't cry like people cry in the movies. These people cry in like these horrible moaning, like gasping sounds.
It's actually pretty painful to listen to. It's like, oh, just make it stop. Just stop making those noises.
The worst is Kira cries a lot, and they even make fun of him for it. Like, they call him a crybaby at one point. Seriously, like, it's a good scene, but they mention he's a crybaby. But one character, at one point, for various reasons, a character tries to pilot a robot that character shouldn't have tried to pilot. And the scene ends with that character crying. And it's kind of this... It's the worst thing ever.
It's really, really bad.
Like, I felt I almost wanted to vomit. It was so terrible. I felt so bad and yet so disgusted. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like regardless of what happened in the show, just the noises coming out of the speakers, just make you feel, One
other thing I just realized, I forgot to mention this because I think this is really cool, that really made the show good for me was that it really humanizes the robots in that when there's a big robot fight, there are almost never just generic robots fighting or background robots fighting. Every robot you see fighting, they make sure you are fully aware that there is a person in there.
Yeah,
they go to great lengths to make sure that every time one of those blows up, someone just died.
They always they always refer to the robots by the name of the robot, and they make sure that you know who is in each one. So it's like, they'd be like, Buster, Duel, Blitz, go, and you know who's in Buster, Duel,
and even
Blitz.
Extras, like, like a lot of shows, if a robot gets blown up, like either a parachute comes out or something, or they just don't say anything, like, oh, the robot blew up. But this show make sure it goes out of its way. Yes, there was a person in there. Yes, you just heard him scream. Now he's dead.
Yeah, like even if like the random generic guy who has no name, is flying an airplane and blows up, it's like they make sure that it wasn't just a blowing up plane. It was, oh my God, that guy just killed a person.
Because, of course, this show, like any Gundam show, has a couple of very basic morals. And without spoiling anything, I think it's obvious to say that the primary moral of Gundam Seed is war is bad. Don't do it ever.
Racism is bad. War is bad. Science is good as long as you use it for good. It's okay to, use some sort of force to protect your friends from imminent death and save lives, but Kill as few people as possible.
But don't be averse to killing if you need to.
Yeah, don't be a wuss.
Also, be smart. You'll notice in the show that any character that is stupid, bad things happen to them as a result of their stupidity. And throughout the show, it's like one by one, all of the characters that don't die suddenly become smart. Like, it all clicks, and they stop acting like idiots.
Or
they die.
Well, the only time characters die is because they either try to do something, way heroic, like I'm going to sacrifice myself for the greater good, or I'm going to go all out, to help my friends, even at the risk of my own life. And that they'll die because of that. You'll also die if you're stupid and you do you take stupid risks, or you're inexperienced, you don't know what you're doing. You'll also die.
Yeah, the show is not afraid, however.
You'll also die if, your ideas are wrong. If you're a bad guy, you're going to die.
Yeah, for the most part. Good guys die too.
Yeah, good guys die too, but for the reasons I stated previously.
A lot of people die in this show. Mm-hmm. A lot of people die.
There are a lot of characters dying.
Yeah, the show is...
All your favorite characters will die.
The show is not afraid to kill characters that are popular at all.
No, they'll die in the middle, they'll die at the beginning, they'll die at the end. Rusty dies right away.
God, the fact that there's a scene near the very end of the show where one character who is still alive is going through in his mind all of the people who have died for what he is about to do.
And he remembers Rusty, who died in episode 1.
Like, he remembers Rusty, and I can't believe that. In fact, we had a contest to guess between the two of us which character who died's name would be said by other characters in that Rusty, other character.
Yeah, like if someone's
other
dead,
character.
If someone's dead, they'll mention them again and again in the show for many, many episodes. As they look fondly back on that person's life, or they're still upset about that person dying.
It's a very Trigun-esque, that person died. They are dead. They're not coming back, and they're dead because of your stupid war.
Yeah, in the last episode, they'll remind you of every single named character who lost their lives.
And at that point, you'll realize that a lot of fucking people got axed in this show.
Yeah, but there's some that are mentioned more than others, and that's how you tell who is really important.
Yep, I'm not going to ruin who won on the getting mentioned the most, because that would be a number of spoilers.
That would be a number of spoilers.
I think we're done for now. I encourage all of you to see Gundam SEED, even if you don't think you would like it. If you
don't watch it on TV.
Oh, God. Very briefly, Cartoon Network butchered it in ways that I cannot express in the time I have left tonight.
Honestly, if you watch it on Cartoon Network, no one dies.
Characters die, but they remove all the scenes that let you know they die, and whenever possible, they remove the words kill or die from the dialogue. They also replace all of the handguns with neon laser guns.
Yeah.
And characters don't just die in robots. People get shot, people get stabbed, people get crushed, people get exploded.
Rocket launcher.
Terrorists.
Yeah, all kinds of crazy stuff. So... It's really...
The show is good. Watch it. I think you'll like it. Give it at least 10 episodes. And if you don't like it after 10 episodes, let us know, and we're curious why.
Yeah, there are 50 episodes in the show, and I could understand it if someone one story arc and then didn't like another story arc. There's 4 or 5
Don't judge the show on the first 4 episodes. They start like any Gundam show.
Yeah, there are 4 or 5 or 6 story arcs in this thing, depending on how you break it down, and... There are 4 or 5 openers to the show and closer sets. It's pretty big. So if you don't like one part, maybe you'll like the next part. I really don't think very few people will not like it, judging by the ratings on Anime News Network with this big green line and the very small red line. Yeah.
And of course, sometime in the future, we will do a final thoughts episode where we talk about the actual plot in terms of all the spoilers and the big scenes that I'd really like to talk about for all of you, but I can't spoil the show because seeing these scenes unfold and realizing what's going on is one of the biggest things about this show. And that was Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for our opening theme.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com. If you like our podcasts, you'll love our forums. Make sure you visit them. You can send your email feedback to geeknights@gmail.com. And if you want, you can leave us a voicemail at 206-333-1537.
Geeknights airs every weeknight, Monday through Thursday.
Geeknights is recorded with absolutely no studio and no audience. But unlike those other talk shows, it's actually recorded at night.